My name is Orville Dashgupta. I am currently pursuing my MTech in Chemical Engineering at IIT Kanpur. So in this video I will be sharing about my BRC interview experience. So uh, even before your interview starts, you need to do certain document verifications. Okay, so in order to do that, you will have to check the website and see which documents are required, and you have to bring it with you. There's one thing which students generally forget is the conversion certificate. In our time, the conversion certificate was not given in the things which are required to bring, but they were asking for the conversion certificate. Now what does this conversion certificate really means? It's not really too much high level or anything. It's a basic certificate which shows how much CGPA corresponds to how much percentage. So if you belong to a college where they're directly giving you percentages and also CGPA, then that's all right. You can show them that you got this much percentage in your exams, and that will be fine. But if your college is only giving you certificates where there are only the CGPAs are given, in that case you do need to bring a conversion certificate. Okay, so after the document verification will occur, then they will be asking you to sit in a room, and you will have to wait patiently for your turn. Okay, so it does take some time. Approximately per day, I think 10 to 12 interviews happens. I think around 10 to 12 interview per day. So after document verification and everything is over, then you will be asked to go to the interview hall where you will be interviewed. So in the panel there are generally 6 people. Like in my case, I think it was 7 people. So there will be one chairman who will be sitting in the center, and around him other scientists will be sitting. So what they really look is they do not look for any correct answers, or they do not look for how, like, whether you are able to answer it accurately or not. What they really look for is your approach of answering, right? Because there are certain questions where like they will be asking certain questions where even if you give a different answer, you have to back it up with your understanding. So basically they will be looking at your understanding level, your ability to think, that they will be looking. So in case you're unable to answer anything, rather than telling them that I do not know the answer, you think at first, you go to the basics, you start from ground zero, and then you try to build up that problem. Okay, like saying that I do not know how what this question's answer will be is very easy, but if you at least try to give them an answer by thinking, they will be looking that okay, this guy is actually thinking, he's actually trying to figure out how to solve the problem. That creates a very much positive impact, rather than you not answering at all and saying that I do not know. But in case you are really unable to find out, then you must tell the truth that sorry, I do not know how to answer this, rather than giving wrong answers. Now the problem is they ask really simple questions, and it's a problem. You know why? Because if you give wrong answer to a simple question, then it will become very much hectic, because then they will start to question you further based on your wrong assumption, and then they will finally make you admit that what you said was wrong, and they will keep on asking you questions, and they will go through that path only, whatever answer you said, and then finally you will realize that okay, it was wrong. So you need to be highly aware of what they're saying, what they're asking. If you're unable to understand what they're asking, then tell them to repeat the question once more, because that is the main trick. You need to be highly aware during the exam. Now in my case, when I went for the exam, so at first what they really do is they will ask your name, they will ask you from which college did you come, so how is everything, how is the environment and barc, are you enjoying it. They'll ask this kind of question to soothe your nerves down, because they really want you to perform well, they really want to select you. It's not that they want to like it's not that they want to like insult you by asking you difficult question. No, they really want to select you. So they will at first soothe you down, they will offer you water, they might even offer you biscuits also, but it depends on if you want to have, then you may. In my case, I said no sir, I'm all right. Then they will ask you basic things like where do you come, why do you want to join barc. Okay, now this is a bit tricky part. Like in my case, I told them that I'm doing my mtech at IIT Kanpur and I want to complete my mtech, so it is better if I get the DGFS offer. So they were saying that they already have mtech in BRC, so if I want to, I can also join through the OCS and complete their mtech, and then I can also do PhD. Now it depends on you. If you are really in need of a job and if you really want to join BRC, then it's just my suggestion though, you need not tell them. But in that case, you say that okay sir, I really want to join BRC, so even if I am unable to complete my mtech from IIT, or in those cases I will surely join BRC. Okay, in my case I said that I really want to complete my mtech from IIT. So that depends on you, right? So you think and you answer those kinds of questions, because that also affects whether you will be selected or not, because they will try to recruit people who really wants to join BRC, right? Okay, so after you have soothed down your, after you're at your optimum capacity, then they will ask you to talk about 3 or 4 of your favorite subjects. Now those favorite subjects may be anything. Like in my case, I said CRE, heat transfer, fluid mechanics, thermodynamics. I may be I may not be able to discuss fully the questions with you because I really do not remember exactly what happened, but I will try to give you an idea so that you're able to answer them. Okay. So the very first question which they asked me was about molecularity. So they asked me to define what is molecularity of a reaction. Then they gave a reaction A plus B giving C. Then they asked me to give the rate law. After that, okay, now let me tell you what answers I also gave. The molecularity, I gave the basic bookish definition. Now in the second question, when they gave me A plus B giving C and they asked me about the rate law, I told them that I will not be able to find the rate law because the mechanism is not given. Now what many people makes a mistake is that if A plus B giving C or something like this is given, they generally take it as second order reaction. They say that okay, A plus B giving C, so it will be some rate constant times concentration of A into concentration of B, which is actually wrong, because unless and until we know the mechanism of how it's going, unless and until we know about the rate limiting steps and the details, we can never tell the order of the reaction. Okay, okay, then after that, after I said I gave this answer about the mechanism, so they told me to develop my own mechanism, any mechanism. Then I developed one. Then they asked me which one is the rate limiting step. I showed them the rate limiting step in my mechanism which I made. So and after that they asked me to write the final rate expression and I wrote them. So do you get it? Like they were asking me to make my own mechanism. Like, so they're basically checking your approach, how you're approaching the question. Like if you have said something like this, which like if you have said that it will be KCA times CB, then the next question most probably would have been they would have asked you about hydrogen plus iodine reaction, which is a really complex equation, rate law. But it is also A plus B kind of a situation, correct? Then they would ask you why are these two equations different, like why is this a simple K times CSCB which you have written, and why in book a very different kind of a rate expression is given. Then you would have fallen into a spiral of wrong question, of wrong answering. Okay, so you see the problem with simple questions is you have to give a answer with a correct understanding. The kind of question which they were asking me to write, to write any kind of mechanism, so you can write any kind of mechanism, but the main thing which they are checking is whether you are really able to write a mechanism by your own or not, whether do you know the basics of rate law or not. That is what they are trying to see. Okay, so after that they were asking me about if we are given a reactor, any kind of a reactor, and we want to find the rate law, how can we find? Like how can we find whether the A is the limiting reactant or B is the limiting reactant? How can we find all those? Right. So in that case, you will say that maybe you will take a beaker which is filled with reactant B, and then by drop you're adding reactant A, and then you're stirring it, and then you're checking how the reaction curve is varying with dropping of A. And then you may reverse the situation. You may have a beaker with full of reactant A, and then you're dropping reactant B drop by drop and stirring it, and then you're trying to find out how the rate curve will vary with the concentration of B. You're getting my point, right? So you'll have to think by yourself and answer on point. There is no bookish answer to any of these questions. You may also have something of this kind of a situation. So the answer which I was giving at that point was based on the batch reactors. Now you may also have a PFR or a CSTR kind of a reaction where you are varying the initial concentration, and since it is a steady state, only by varying the initial concentration, the entire reaction mechanism you can find out. You can find the rate, right? You're getting it. So they are trying to see how you're thinking. Okay, so they will actually judge you by your thinking. Now there was a question which they asked. They said that there's a PFR. I do not really exactly remember the question, but then they're purging the fluid. Okay, so the fluid is flowing at a flow rate of V naught, and after the fluid is purged at a distance of V by 2. Okay, so let's take the volume as V of the PFR. Alright, it's a long pipe kind of situation. There's a fluid which is flowing with the flow rate x naught, and after a distance of V by 2, which is half of the volume, we are purging half of the fluid. Fine, and then we'll have to find out what the final concentration will be. Now the question may seem simple, but but there are many things which needs to be considered. Now, when this question was asked to me, I was thinking, because you need to think. You cannot just answer them. Okay, because what really happens is, if you, after listening to the question, if you just answer them, then there's a high possibility that you may have missed some important parts. And if you're unable to understand the question, please ask them to repeat. You say, sir, could you please repeat the questions? And when they're giving you the question, for your own benefit, you can always draw the diagram on the board, because the blackboard is for you and chalks are and everything is present. So you just draw the diagram for your own visualization. So they are actually they will actually ask you to do whatever you want to do, and they will see how you think. So the very first thing which I asked him was whether it's a constant volumes, constant density system, or is this a variable density kind of a situation. So they said that, oh, please take a constant density kind of a situation. Then what I did was, by applying the basic equations of plug flow reactor, I said that V by F equals to integral dxa by Ra, and then I took ratio of both the cases, and for me the final concentration came out to be more, which kind of makes sense also, because you see the flow rate then was reduced by half, right? So that means the fluid spent more time in the second half of the reactor compared to the initial fluid where the flow rate was x dot, right? So if it is spending more time, then more reaction should occur. But at that time I showed them mathematically by taking the ratios and those things. Then the next question was from heat exchangers. So a double pipe heat exchanger was drawn by chairman, and he asked me to draw this heat exchanger, and then they will ask me questions based on that. So I drew the heat exchanger. Then they were asking me various questions like what will happen if the flow rate of the cooling water is fluid is differed. What will happen is if the hot water temperature is varied. What will happen if like which kind of a approach should we go for? Should we go for LMTD approach or NTU approach? and how to design the whole heat exchanger. If we only know the length, how will we find the diameter? If we know the diameter, how we will find the length? So these kind of questions, these are actually basic questions, right? But over there they're trying to see your presence of mind, whether you're able to answer them with logical explanation or not. So that's all. And okay, so in the heat exchanger part, they were asking me like how to find the diameter and those stuffs, which I guess I was not able to answer. But it actually depends on the flow rate, and I think in the current book of designing of heat exchangers, there is correlations given for finding the diameter and those things. And also the material was also being asked, like which kind of materials should we use for designing the heat exchanger and these things. Material of construction, yeah, so you should also check about the material of constructions. Like basically we use carbon steel, but when we are having corrosive kind of situation like acidic kind of fluids and those things, we go for stainless steel. But you please check those things, okay. Then after that they were asking me about fluid mechanics, like how to find the pressure of a flowing fluid through a pipe, what will happen if there is a pressure drop, and these kind of questions. Then they asked me about basic thermodynamic questions, like in ammonia reactor, what will happen if we increase the pressure, what will happen if we decrease the temperature, is it an exothermic reaction or endothermic reaction. And these are really basic questions, right? You can easily answer them. But then also there are certain kind of questions which are tricky, but they are actually easy. Like for example, if we add more catalyst, does the reaction rate increase or decrease? Like logically speaking, the reaction rate should always increase, but that is not correct. Okay, that is not correct. Let's see if I can explain you. What really happens is when we are putting catalyst, there is an extra mass transfer step which is occurring, because the catalysts are of a different phase, right? And the medium is liquid, so there is always a mass transfer limiting steps occurring. So based on those things, like if you add more porous catalyst, then it will be better, or if you, or should you add powder catalyst. Now what really happens is many a times due to the introduction of powder catalyst and these things, the pressure drop increases, right? So you need to think about all these situations, all these scenarios, and then you need to answer, because they're just checking your presence of mind in those situations. Okay, so this was my interview experience. My interview went smoothly. Okay, so and yours will also move smoothly, I'm pretty sure. The only problem with us right now is our current education system, because the kind of things which we go through is we are always trying to crack the examination. We are always trying to crack the semester examination by studying one night before, by trying to finding out the solutions of what kind of questions may come. We are trying to crack gate examination by mugging up formulas and by solving bunch of numericals and stuffs like that. But in interviews where scientists are sitting, they are not going to judge you from your numerical solving skills, right? They are going to actually see how you're thinking. They are going to check how your thought process is, whether you're actually understanding the concepts or not. So this was what I wanted to say. So see, you do have time right now, right? So you go through the NPTEL lectures. Okay, by the way, this is just my suggestion. You did not do that, but I'm just suggesting you may go through the NPTEL lectures, because over there the professors actually describes the things slowly and slowly, so you do understand the concepts, right? Or you may go through the books which you have, but just by going through the books will not really help, because you need to have someone who is explaining things to you. All right, so this was what I wanted to share. Thank you.